Building AI agents inside n8n has become really popular recently for many use cases, most of them being, for example, chat agents or also agents that take care of doing stuff in the backend, like updating data into a CRM. In this video, I want to talk about 5 different features that you can add into your agents that will make them more powerful. Some of these features are very basic and other ones can be overlooked very easily. If you're new to the channel, my name is Josue and I've been building AI and automations and running my own AI agency for the past year. So let's dive right into it. Right here, I have a budget tracking AI agent that I did a breakdown on a previous video. If you want to check that out, I'll be putting the link up here. But basically what it does is you text it through Telegram just in natural language, and what it does is that it has the ability to update information in a spreadsheet, which is my personal budget tracking spreadsheet, which I tell the agent every single time I make an expense, this is how much I spent, and the agent automatically logs it into the spreadsheet. It does some calculations in the backend in order to see how much money I have left for my monthly budget. And I thought this was a great example to start off with because I'm using different features of the agent. So we're mainly going to be focusing over here on the AI agent. So let me open it up. And the first thing I want to talk about is the user prompt, or the prompt that you see here, versus the system message. So whenever you go ahead and open a new agent, you're going to see this right here. And so the first parameter says the source for prompt, or the user message. It automatically is going to say connected chat trigger node. This means that if you're using n8n's native chat trigger node, this is where it's going to be getting the prompt from, which is just the query or the message that the user is sending. For most cases, you're not going to be using this type. And so what you want to do is you want to click on define below. What that's going to do is you're going to be able to define a prompt or a user message down below. This might be a little bit confusing because we might just think this is the main prompt that the agent is going to be using. And depending on how long or the functionalities of your agent are going to be, it can actually work, but it's not ideal. And the reason for that is because the prompt or the user message is what we want to send in as an input, which is why we want to put our main prompt, our main instructions and guidelines and examples in a system prompt. So in order to enable a system prompt, you can click add option, system message, and you're going to be writing your main prompt over here. So going back into the budget agent, you can see that my prompt or the user message is just going to be the last message, or the message that I'm sending through Telegram. It's not going to be the instructions. And my instructions, I'm defining them inside the system message. And I quickly want to emphasize that a very good habit to get into is writing your prompts using Markdown format. If you don't know what Markdown format is, it's using hashtags as your headline. So for example, one hashtag means heading 1, 2 hashtags heading 2, and it just communicates with the LLM the different importance on the rules or instructions that you're given. You can also do like dashes, which are just going to be bullet points. You can do triple dashes together, which is just going to be like a separator, and it just makes it more organized. So for example, here I have an identity, general rules. I have instructions on how to use the tools that the agent is provided, and all sort of different things. As you can see, conversation flow. All of this is the main context and instructions that the agent needs to follow. It's not my user prompt, but my system prompt. Second thing I want to talk about is tool calling. So as you may know, whenever you have an AI agent, you can add tools to it. And what tool is basically giving the agent the ability to call different platforms or perform actions by its own in order to complete a task. So for example, here I have 3 different tools that all connecting to Google Sheets. One of them is appending a sheet, another one is reading a sheet, and another one's also reading a sheet. So for example, when the tool for logging the transaction is actually sending the information that I'm giving it through the chat into the Google Sheet. And then these other 2 are used to extract specific information and then providing it back to me. And so if I open log transaction, for example, you're going to see that it looks just like a regular API call or a call into my Google Sheets. I connected my credential, and then there's a section that says tool description. This you can either set it automatically or set manually. This is going to be a little bit more of context to give the agent when the tool should be used. Personally, I'm giving a lot of information in my system prompt, for which I'm just keeping it set automatically. But depending on your case, this might be helpful. And then we have the operation, which is just going to be append row. But what I really want to touch upon here is, as you can see over here, we have something that says define automatically by the model. So I can either remove this and tell it what date to put in there every single time, or I can simply click this and have the agent automatically fill in this parameter for me. This is a very, very powerful tool that is game changing and will really take your agents to the next level. As you see in here, everything is being filled up by the agent. I'm not filling anything manually. For example, so I have date, notes, amounts, the merchant, and the category. And what I'm telling the agent in the prompt is use the date that the user tells you. If they don't give you a date, then just default to the current date. Same as for notes. If the user adds any specific notes, you're going to put it in the notes row, but they're filling this out independently. You also have the ability to add a description, which is just going to give a little bit more context. Again, my system prompt is very clear, for which I don't have to do this. But also, if I were to hit the X over here, you can see this is pretty much just a function that's being set as the parameter. This is the from AI function, which is an n8n function. So if I go into the n8n docs, you can see that there's a let AI specify the tool parameter, which is that function. As you can see, same thing over here. You can press it there. or you can do it manually by writing the syntax right here. And so the function can take different parameters, such as the key, which is just going to be the name of the variable, the description, which is describing a little bit more what that parameter is. This is pretty much this little option that we see down here. Then we have a type, which is just a data type, and a default value, which is in case the agent can't give it its own value, it's going to fall back into whatever value we give it. But you can see all three of these are not required. I'm not putting them in my tools, and I think they're not necessary if you're giving it a very clear system prompt. Now I want to move into another feature, which is going to be using a structural output parser, or telling the agent to provide you their output in a specific format. For this case, I'm going to refer to my cold email icebreaker generator, for which I've also made another video, which I'll be linking up here. And so we're not going to focus on the whole flow itself. We're just going to focus on one agent. And for that, I'm going to go to a past execution. So I'm actually going to focus on the icebreaker generator just because it's a little bit of a better example. Basically, what's happening in here, we're providing the agent with different values, such as a prospect's LinkedIn profile information, or their website or company that they work for information. And so if I click here on the icebreaker gen agent, we see that we get a very unique output. We get 4 different things, such as a subject line, which are subject line, icebreaker, a postscript, and an industry. In order for you to be able to get an output that's organized and in this specific format, you need to use an output parser. So if you look in the agent, there's always going to be this option of requiring a specific output format. And whenever you turn it on, what's going to happen is that you're going to see this output parser option open up. And so let me go back to the editor. If I open an agent and I click require specific output format, you'll see we now have this option here. If I turn it off, it's gone. So whenever I hit plus in here, I'm going to have different options. You see one of them is deprecated, but really the only one that you're going to be using is going to be structure output parser in JSON format. And so when you click on that, you're going to see that you're going to be able to input a schema type. And what a schema type is, just giving it like a general idea of what you're looking for. So for example, the default one has a state and cities, a state being just a JSON key value pair, and then cities being an array. But if I go into the icebreaker gen, I'm providing it a very specific schema here with the 4 different values that we saw in the output. So subject line, icebreaker, postscript, and industry. And it doesn't really matter what you put in here as the value of your variables, as long as you get the structure as you want it. For example, here, I'm just using variables, so key value pairs, not really doing any arrays or anything fancy. And then another crucial part is that you need to define in your system prompt what's going to be going inside that schema. So for example, here, I have a section just for an output format, and I tell them return your first response strictly in this JSON structure. I'm providing it an example of what I'm looking for, and this needs to match the schema that you have on the output parser, because if not, it's going to throw an error and you're going to have to go back and fix it. The next feature that I want to talk about is going to be memory. As you see, we're back on the budget tracking agent, and you see that I have a node connected here that says simple memory. So what is a simple memory? Simple memory is a functionality of an agent that's able to store information inside your n8n instance. So for example, here, what I'm storing in the simple memory is just going to be the chat memory or the conversation history that the agent's having with a specific user. So for that, you're just going to click here on memory. As you see, it's for beginners because it's the most simple one. If you choose simple memory, it's a very easy setup. All you have to do is give it a session ID, and what your session ID is just going to be the ID of a specific chat. So for example, when I'm chatting on Telegram, my conversation with a bot or with a person has its own unique ID, and that's what's going to be going in here. As you can see, we have it as an option to define it below. You can also do it as a connected chat trigger node, but it only works while you're testing it live inside your workflow. It wouldn't work with like Telegram. And then you have an option to give it a context window length. And what this number means is just how many of the previous conversation and interactions are going to be provided to the agent as context. So if I put 20, it's just going to be the last 20 messages that were sent back and forth between me and the agent, so that it has context of where the conversation is going and what has been told. And then you see that there's also an option for other memories. And this is if you're using third-party tools such as Supabase, which is integrating using Postgres. It's a little bit more advanced, but what this is basically saying is storing those chat histories in an external database. And there's different benefits to that because you can do more dynamic stuff, much less limited than a simple memory, but definitely a more advanced setup. And the last feature I want to cover is going to be the agent-to-agent delegation. This is a very big workflow that is actually in production right now that I'm using as a receptionist for service-based businesses. We're only going to be focusing on the agent and more specifically on this tool right here. As mentioned before, you can add tools to let the agent communicate with different platforms, but you can also add another agent as a tool. So if I search up agent, you can see AI agent tool. And the setup for this sub agent is very similar. You're going to have a description, a prompt, and a system message. And just to quickly give you an idea of how I'm using it here, basically I have a main agent that has different functionalities such as accessing a knowledge base, booking an appointment, getting available slots. getting details from a house of a prospect that's contacting the agent. And then all of this information that's being gathered by them, it has to be stored somewhere. So in a business's case, they're storing it usually in a database, which can be a CRM or a customer relationship management system, which helps them keep track of every single customer that's coming into their funnel. And so when I was building this out, the agent had all the functionalities that it has right now in order to book an appointment. But then I also gave it all the other tools to save the information into the CRM. And my prompt got very long and it would hallucinate a lot. It would not work. So the only way for me to do this was to create a separate agent as a tool that will only focus in updating the information into the CRM. So this is what it's doing. In the prompt for the main agent, it has specific instructions to only call the update contact agent when it needs to save information. So whenever an appointment is booked, after it's booked, it's gathering that information, sending it to the sub agent, and the sub agent is communicating with the CRM and saving that information. This is a very powerful use case for when your agent starts getting very long. Usually having an agent delegate tasks to another agent might be the best way to get the best results. So yeah, those are 5 different ways that you can make your agents better. To quickly recap, we covered the difference between using a system prompt and a user prompt, tool calling and letting the AI fill the parameters for those tools, using structure output parsers to get organized information as an output, using memory for chat agent and agent to agent delegation, or using sub agents for more complex tasks. If you find this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. And if you would like me to go in deeper into each of these features in a future video, please let me know in the comments. I'll be more than happy to do a breakdown or a tutorial on how it works in a production setting. And I'll see you guys on the next video.